Hey, and welcome to our virtual gathering. We are so excited that you are here joining us this morning.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing morning. However you found us, we're just so glad you are here. Welcome to Light Church. Coming up in today's gathering, we are carrying on our series, This Is Us. We are in week 7. That means after today, there's only one more week. And we are looking at our 6th value. We will be a church that expresses its essential creativity. And like always, I got some special guests joining me this morning. It's going to be an amazing morning.
Oh, it's going to be so good. And we want you to get involved this morning, so make sure you're heading to the live chat. You're using that, you're sending a hello to everyone right now, saying hello to everyone. You are getting involved in encouraging the team that have put on this gathering. But also, if at any point during this gathering you need prayer, head to light.church/prayer and you can fill out a prayer request form there.
Also, if you have kids anywhere between the ages of 0 and 11, we have our amazing kids ministry just for them. So go to YouTube, type in Light Church Epic Online. You can find all the videos. A new one drops at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. every single Sunday. So those are not to be missed at all.
Oh, there's so much content on there. But also we are about to head into the gathering right now, but we've just got a couple minutes just before we head in. So make sure you're sharing this link with people. Share it to someone in your world right now, or share it on your Facebook or your Instagram, wherever you want to share it. Just make sure you're sharing what we've got going on this morning.
Yeah, definitely don't underestimate the importance of just inviting someone that could change someone's life forever. But as always, we're so glad to have you with us this morning. So these 30 seconds are yours, and we'll see you real soon. See ya.
You are constantly in the way that you forgive me, steady as the moon that shifts the tide, and consistently in the way that you believe in me. True, and now you choose me every time. To the end, I will stand to the end, devoted to you to the end. I will sing to you to the end. You are constant in the way that you amaze me, and steady as the moon that brings the night, consistent in the way that you're redeeming me. True, now my past won't change your mind. To the end, I will stand with you to the end, and devoted to you to the end. I will sing to you to the end. To the end. breath wears thin, you will hear my voice, my imperfect melody. When my bones are dust and my hands can't raise, you will hear my voice, and my love will last till all time runs out and my breath wears thin. You will hear my voice, my imperfect melody. When my bones are dust and my hands can't erase, you will hear my voice, and my love will last till all time runs out and my breath wears thin. You will hear my voice, my imperfect melody. When my bones are dust and my hands can't raise, you will hear my voice, and my love will last to the end. I will stand with you to the end, devoted to you to the end. I will sing to you to the end, to the end, to the end, to the end. You can count on me to the end, faithfully to the end. I will sing to you to the end, to the end. I will stand with you to the end, devoted to you to the end. I will sing to you to the end. Oh, to the end. You can count on me to the end, faithfully to the end. I will sing to you to the end, to the end. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, has been in your sight long before my first desperate, running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out, just as I am. Lord, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again.
Hey, welcome to Light Church. Welcome to our virtual gathering. We are going to jump straight in today. I'm so excited that you're here. We are in a series called This Is Us, where we are going through our mission and vision as a church and then journeying through our 7 values. We have 7 values at Light Church. These are the things that kind of keep us aligned. They help us stay on track with who God is asking us to be as a church, but they're also to be embodied for us as individuals as well. So if you've missed the last couple of weeks, I definitely encourage you, go back, check them all out. They've been so good so far. And like always, today is split into 4 parts, and I've got some special guests helping me communicate this value today. But for those of you who don't know, our 7 values are these. We will be a church that pursues the heart of God. We will be a church that multiplies and grows, a church that talks with its hands, and a church that has a voice of influence. We will be a church that makes kings and queens, a church that expresses its essential creativity, and a church that builds a genuine family. I believe that if we embody these, we will stay in line with who God is calling us to be, and that's really exciting. So today we are going to be looking at our 6th value. We will be a church that expresses its essential creativity. So before we jump in, I just want to address the fact that a lot of you right now might be sat thinking, well, I'm not really a creative person. Many of you actually, anytime the word creativity comes up, you just think, oh, I'm more logical, or I'm more like scientific, or I'm not really like artistic, I don't sing, I don't dance, that's not really who I am. Well, let's define some terms. Let's look at creativity just before we jump into why this is important as a value. And I really think like this morning we'll shed some light on what it means to have creativity, or what creativity actually is in our lives. So, in an academic paper that was published in the 90s by Dr. Sonia Blissett and Dr. Robert McGrath, this was the conclusion that they arrived at around creativity. So it was a secular study all about human creativity. This is what they said. Creativity is associated with the capacity for thinking in new and different ways. The capacity for thinking in new and different ways. We'll carry on. So in the Oxford Dictionary, it says this: creativity is the use of imagination or original ideas to create something, or otherwise known as inventiveness. In the Cambridge Dictionary, it says this: the ability to produce or use original and unusual ideas. Now, something that stood out to me in all of these definitions from different perspectives is this: creativity is far more than the expression, so the artistic expression. So many people relegate creativity to its artistic expression, singing, dancing, being able to write, all those different things, being able to paint or draw. But actually, creativity is far more fundamental than we realize. It's actually to do with our capacity to be able to dream and imagine and see things differently for what they are. Creativity is a capacity to see things differently, to see things in a new way, to come up with ideas, to come up with things that are different than the thing that is in front of us. Creativity is far more than just the artistic expression. So listen to this: creativity is the capacity to dream and imagine, which is then filtered through or expressed through the specific gifts and talents and abilities that God has given to each of us. So creativity looks different in all of our lives, not because we are creative or we aren't creative, but actually we all have creative capacity, this ability to think differently, to see things differently, to imagine, to dream, to see like a different future, to imagine something beyond where it is right now. We all have that ability. You might think, well, I'm not really like that. I'm into spreadsheets and stuff like that. Well, can you imagine things being different to they are right now? Maybe it's what you wear. Maybe it's the way you approach your job. Maybe it's the way you raise your kids. Creativity is about a capacity to think and see things differently. But actually it looks different in all of our lives because it is then expressed or filtered through the things that God has given us individually, our gifts, our abilities, our talents. So you might be sitting there this morning being like, oh, I didn't realize it was about thinking. I didn't realize it was this capacity to be able to see beyond what is seen. I have that. Well, let me encourage you this morning. You are creative. See, we miss out on so much of who God is because we relegate creativity to its expression. Let's not get caught up on just the expression of creativity. It is far more fundamental. So I wish we could spend a whole morning on creativity. I'm sure we will at some point, but that is just, let's define that term, creativity. I love that one. Creativity is associated with the capacity for thinking in new and different ways. We can all do that. It is inherent in humanity. So the second thing we need to define, like I said, we will be a church that expresses its essential creativity. That means, let's look at this word essential. I don't mean essential as in it is needed in that sense of the word. Essential as in it is fundamental. It is foundational. It is inherent within every single human. Our essential creativity, that thing that sits and lies at the core of who we are. So those are the terms. But as always, we need to look at why is this important for us as a church to embody this value? Why is it important for us as a church to get our heads around this idea of expressing this essential creativity? Well, I've got two thoughts for us this morning. The first one is this. We want to be a church that expresses its essential creativity because we want to know God and we want to be more like Him. We want to know God and be more like Him. It is part of the aspect of being the created, that we want to mirror our Creator. We want to draw close to Him and be more like Him. And let's look at this. So in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it says this. So God created mankind in His own image and likeness. In the image of God, He created them, male and female, He created them. Did you know you and I are image bearers of God? We carry the image and likeness of God because that is how He created us. God created us, humanity, in His image and likeness. That means that there is this capacity. God has that capacity to see before it is actually seen. To imagine, to envisage, to dream up, to hold within before it is actually seen. You know that verse where it says that before we were ever knitted together in our mother's womb, before we even existed, God knew us. It's to do with this capacity. As humans, we have that same capacity. We can see in our mind, in our spirit, in our heart, before we can actually see with our eyes. So God is a creative God. We are created in His image and likeness. That means that we have that creativity within us. It is inherent. It is foundational to who we are as humans. And even just look at Jesus when He stepped into human history. Look at the creative miracles He did. He healed a guy by spitting in his eyes. He walked on water. He fed 5,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Jesus was, in essence, creativity. Jesus was a creative person. You look at the parables, the way that Jesus thought differently. He didn't just communicate in lofty words and big abstract ideas. Jesus was like, I want these people to understand. I want these people to be able to take away this message. He told them stories so they would understand. He used farming analogies when He spoke to people out in the countryside. He would speak in ways that were different to the teachers of the time. Jesus was creative. We have this spirit of creativity. We have this capacity for creativity within every single one of us. Let me read another verse. Romans 1:20 in the Message version says this. I love this passage. It says, but the basic reality of God is plain enough. Open your eyes and there it is. By taking a long and thoughtful look at what God has created, people have always been able to see what their eyes, as such, cannot see. Let's read that a little bit again. People have always been able to see what their eyes as such cannot see. It's talking about this unseen world, that humans have this ability to see what is not seen. We have this capacity laced within all of nature. It's transcendent, it's within, it's through everything. It's God's Spirit and His presence. And humans have this ability to be able to see beyond that which is seen. This is like talking about our creative capacity. This is talking about this creativity that lies within every single one of this ability to see in new ways and to see in different ways. So we want to know God and we want to be like Him. Secondly, we want to see the world as God sees it. We want to see the world as God sees it. We want to be a church that expresses its essential creativity because we want to see the world as God sees it. Ephesians chapter 3 verse 20 says this, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to His power that is at work within us." We can imagine things that are not as though they are. And God is saying that He is far bigger and He can do far more than even we can imagine. So we want to step into this essential creativity that we have. We want to be aware of it. We want to understand it. We want to walk in it because God has so much more for us than even we, when we're in that spot, can actually see or hope for or imagine. We want to step into this place because God is all around us. He is speaking, He is moving, He is showing us things. But often we get so caught up in the physical that we cannot see beyond the things that our eyes see. God is calling us to understand this element of ourselves, this part of ourselves, this core element of who we are, because He wants to speak to us and show us things beyond that which is seen. And then in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, in the Message version, it says this, "You are here to be the light, bringing out the God colors in the world." God is sending us out as His people to bring out the God colors in a very gray and dark world. God's Spirit, as I said, is laced throughout all of human history, throughout all of nature, transcendent above. It is weaved throughout and in everything that we see and experience. We are here to bring about that kingdom on this earth, to bring out that God thread weaved throughout humanity. So there is so much of God's nature that we miss when we reject creativity. There is so much of His character and who He is that we just miss out on when we just reduce creativity to an artistic expression. Creativity is the ability to see things differently, and God is calling Light Church to bring about a renaissance of human creativity, to bring about this restored image of this part of us that we have so long rejected. I think we are being called to do something special here. We will be a church that expresses its essential creativity because we want to know God and be more like Him, and because we want to see the world as God sees it.
I started writing songs probably when I was about 14, 15. I saved up for a laptop, producing. I've just kind of been on that journey ever since. Yeah, I think the more I've kind of grown as myself and in my relationship with God, the more and more I've kind of accepted like the way I think, and to open myself up to just kind of like deeper ways of thinking. I think something that's really important with creativity is that we're not just adding to noise. It's like God's given us gifts and we all have our own stories to tell. But when you filter that through God's word and a relationship with Him, you can actually add something meaningful to the world.
I've never considered myself to be creative. I'm not artistic or musical. I think my travels have helped me to see things differently. It helps me to see that God is a God of diversity. God actually, I mean, it's fantastic to see all these cultures, the way people cope in all the situations they're in. I've trekked up to Everest Base Camp. I've done the Inca Trail, camped to Machu Picchu. I've found a lost city in Colombia on a trek. Driven across the Atacama Desert. Cycled in Vietnam, done most of South America, and took a train from Shanghai to Moscow. And last year, COVID year, I had the privilege going on my own to Kilimanjaro and climbing Kilimanjaro. That was fantastic. There are so many ways I've realised that you can be creative. Creativity is all around us, actually. And I believe everybody has that spark of creativity in them, given from God.
So from a young age, I had a real awareness of creativity and the gifting that God had put inside of me. My parents often used to say to me, you've always got this little something in your heart that you need to express. And it was true. I actually had the privilege from a young age to grow up in a church that really had a high value of the arts. And I had a real awareness of that it was an opportunity to connect and communicate with people, and that it was a really good way to introduce people to God. So that actually led me to do a creative degree. And those 4 years were really rich. They were full of opportunity. In that place, I think one of the main things that God really taught me was the place that you create from and how to rest in that place. And as a creative, you so often are thinking about the next thing you're moving to, or the next project, or the thing that you want to create, and actually remembering who gave you that gift.
Okay, so we've defined the terms creativity and essential. What does this mean? We've looked at why this is important for us to embody this value. But now let's look at some things we need to have in place, some foundational things to ensure that we can actually embody this value in our own lives. So if you're taking notes, the first thing we need to do is this. We need to foster the belief that there is always a way, and we just need to find it. We need to foster the belief that there is always a way and we just have to find it. So much of creativity is found in this belief. There is always a way, I just haven't found it yet. So often when we come against problems or a crisis or like obstacles in our life, we just sit and we can often just settle and say, well, this is the way it is. But actually that creative capacity that God has graced us with allows us to actually see things in different ways. Actually allows us to step out of our situation and think there must be a different way around this. If we want to kind of step into this fullness or like activate this capacity in our lives that so many of us have rejected because we think, oh, I'm not creative. If we want to activate that capacity in our lives, we need to foster this belief there is always a way. There is always a way, I just haven't found it. I wonder how different your life would look right now if you would actually give God the rope in your life for Him to move. But so many of us just sit back, oh, that is the way it is. It's never going to change. It can never be any different. I'm not talking about like some weird optimism that just thinks everything's going to be amazing, because we know life can be really difficult. But what I'm saying is a real rooted, grounded belief that there is always a way through. I just haven't found it yet. If you foster that belief, I promise you, you will start to see a broadening of your creative capacity. Secondly, increase your creative capacity. Increase that capacity that God has given you for creativity. So this just looks like trying some new things. To step into this idea of all of us being creative, we need to acknowledge that to see things differently, we need to feed ourselves with some different things. We can't just expect to do what we've always done and then get different results. There's that famous quote about madness is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Let's not be those people. If we want to broaden our creative capacity, if we want to broaden our ability to actually see things differently, to dream, to imagine beyond what is seen, then we need to feed ourselves. This is what inspiration is. For all of you that are maybe songwriters or artists, or even people that are really interested in this topic of creativity, inspiration is really funny because often people say inspiration fuels creativity, and for the longest time I thought it was the same thing. But actually, the thing is about inspiration has such an impact on us because inspiration takes us out of where we are and gives us the ability to see things from a different perspective. So you're not drawn to the things you're inspired by because it's what you see around you. It's actually the exact opposite. You are inspired and drawn to these things that inspire you because it's actually different to the things that you see. It's actually different to that which is seen before you. So it allows us to see things differently. If you're a songwriter and you're thinking, oh, I really need inspiration, I need some creativity to write this new melody or write this new song, inspiration pulls us out of where we're at and drops us in a different vantage point, a different perspective, and allows us to see things differently, to then express through the gifts that God has given us. In that person's case, the ability to write music and write lyrics that comes out in a piece that moves people, that adds to the world, that points people to Jesus, that connects with a deeper level of humanity. So, foster the belief that there is always a way, you just have to find it. Secondly, increase your creative capacity by trying things. Just try things. Thirdly, be led by the Spirit. This is so important. Be led by the Spirit. You're sat there listening this morning, you think, I don't do this Jesus thing. Let me encourage you. If you call yourself a creative person, like I said, it might be in the artistic expression, or it might just be this morning you've learned you're a creative person. Listen, the best way for you to realize your creativity is to be led by the Spirit of God. Do you know why? In my experience and all throughout the scriptures, the Spirit of God never leads us to a place of comfort, and it never leads us to a place that is known. It always leads us to a place outside of our comfort zone and into this unknown territory. Let me tell you, the breeding ground, the best place for creativity to thrive is in the unknown, because we are reliant on seeing things differently. We're not so caught up in our own perspective. We can actually lean into seeing things in a new way, to see things that are different to that which we usually see. Being led by the Spirit will point us in different directions. Will nudge us when we need to see things differently. Will draw our eye to things that we maybe never had actually drawn our eye to before, which will allow us to use our gifts, our abilities, and our talents to create things of beauty, to create things that speak to people, that contribute something of meaning to the world. Be led by the Spirit is so important. And finally, be bold and don't settle. Like I said, creativity absolutely shrivels up when we just stay in the small box of our narrow view of the world. When we just look at the same things, when we just do the same things, your creativity will dwindle away. God is calling us to be people that live in wide open spaces, that are secure enough to be able to see things differently, that are secure enough to try things, that are led by the Spirit, that are bold. It takes boldness to say something beyond where you're at. It takes boldness to dream and to create a better future. It takes boldness to be the person that God has called you to be. You have to remember that. The mission of this church is to help you step into your future through the life-changing message of Jesus. That takes boldness. Being the person you've been designed to be does not just come easy. It takes boldness, and you cannot settle for what you see. God is calling us as a church to be a church that expresses our essential creativity, because He wants to do something special through us, and He wants to help us see things differently, to see things that are unusual, to create beauty, and to leave something meaningful on this world.
Yeah, I think my faith and my creativity is like super interconnected, songwriting in particular, and that whole what I was saying earlier of trying to have something new to add, it forces me into a deeper relationship with God, because I have to figure it out for myself. I have to pray, I have to dig deep and do the work for it. If I'm a creative person, the best thing I can do for my faith is get to the core of who I am and be more me and open that up to God. Recently I just wrote like my own EP, and I really had to journey through some stuff with God, because I didn't want to be fake about it. I didn't want to pretend I had it all together, but I also didn't want to just add to the noise. So yeah, I think creativity is super important in church as well, because we open that space up to other people as well. If someone's laboured over some words and some melodies for a song, and they've prayed into that all comes out when we're singing that. And singing in church feels like nothing else. And when there's that community of faith and you're declaring a truth, I think that's really, really important for us as believers.
Well, I think on all trips, whatever you're doing, you have to be resourceful. Things don't always go to plan, so you have to be prepared to rough it. Be resourceful. Looking at cars that break down, I mentioned mechanics before. I've been in cars in Ethiopia, and you say, this car is dead, it will go nowhere. And suddenly, in a little village, men appear, one's got a welding torch, one's got a bottle of gas, and most of them got hammers, and banging this, that, and the other, and after about an hour, the car splutters to life again, and off you go. There is creativity in virtually everything we do, and it doesn't have to be about travel. It's about what God has put on your heart to do.
So then I think about Jesus and how he used cultural references to connect with people and used language that they would understand something in. And then that just makes me think how all that works together. Like, God is the master communicator, and that is what I'm in the business of. I'm in the business of communication, whether that's visual communication, bringing a new, unique point of view or perspective to something, whether it's through words or music. Like, communication is powerful. And there has been so many times where I've had to seek God for a creative solution or ask him for a solution for a creative project or for some inspiration. And actually he has always come through. And I do believe that art and creativity and the visual is becoming a new language. And I think that is so accessible to so many people. And it allows people to connect in a way they may never have connected before.
Amazing. So let's look at how we can actually put some things in place, like how we can actually express our essential creativity. Let's look at this on the level like generally as a church. How can we do this? What does it look like for Light Church? And then we can give you some like practical ways that you can express the essential creativity that has been set within you in your own life. So as a church, this looks like our music or our worship. It looks like not just doing the normal thing. It looks like looking at things differently, striving to give God something of value, like to give him our best. It looks like not just perpetuating something because it's the way it's done, but actually saying, look, we want to honor God here. How can we look at this differently? How can we express this message that's changed our life? How can we express God's character? How can we express all that he's done in us? How can we express the scriptures in a way that people will understand? It looks like our media. It looks like the way that we communicate digitally. It looks like our set design. Did you know that every single part of this virtual gathering is here for a reason? Nothing is here by accident. The set design, the graphics, everything is there to tell a story, to say something, to point to something bigger than itself. That's the way it should be. We want to hold this as a value. We want to be intentional about that stuff. This looks like our visual arts. That might look like dance. It might look like artists in the church. That might look like songwriting. It might look like the way that we write, the way that we tell stories, the way that we preach. It is a value to us. We will not just toe the line when it comes to church. We will commit to seeing things differently. We will commit to stepping out of our comfort zone. We will commit to actually meeting needs, and that takes creativity. So many churches just do things because it's the normal way church is supposed to be done. That will not be Light Church. We will do things that are important, the way that God wants them to be done. Not that other churches aren't doing that, but this is a value to us. When God says, I want you to worship, we think, okay, how can we express that in all that we do, or whatever it might be? This looks like the way that we approach problems. It looks like the way that we lead through crisis. Not just taking the first solution that comes to us, but actually saying, how can we look at this differently? How can we get more out of this? How can we imagine the church in a different place than it is in? How can we imagine the community in a different way that it is in right now? It is our general approach as a church will be built on this creative capacity. Can we see things in a new or unusual or different way? So as a church, I think that, it's a church I want to be part of. Like I said, I'm so honored that I get to be part of this church as well. And I want to be a part of a church that strives to say something authentic and innovative. Not just like says things because it's what Hillsong has released or because it's what another big church has released, but what has God given us to say? What has God given us to express? And we will express that as a church. I hope you can hear this is not just a value because it's supposed to be. It is a value because it is at the very core of who we are as a church. We will be a church that expresses its essential creativity. It will be an intentional thing that we do. From music to leadership to problems to crisis to the way that we communicate, all to express this essential creativity, to tell of the one who called us, that saved us, who have transformed and changed our life. That is what this is about. So that is on a church level, but let's look at you as an individual, you and I. How can we embody this in our day-to-day? So firstly, choose today to look at things differently. It might be a problem, it might be your life, it might be your job, whatever it is, choose today to look at things differently. How can I see this from a different way? Like I said, be led by the Spirit. Holy Spirit, show me a different perspective on this problem so that I can face it with boldness, so I can face it using this creativity that you've given to me. If you're an artistic creative, write that song, paint that picture, write that poem, write that story, whatever it is, release that album. Start digging, paint that picture, draw that, whatever it might be. I want to encourage you to step into it. So many times you'll sit there and think, I will get around to it. I will sharpen that craft. Look, God has given you a gift and the world needs your gift. You can bring so much meaning and beauty into this world if you just use the gifts that God has given you. With this creativity, this creative capacity that God has given you to see the world differently. The world is waiting for your input. Thirdly, ask yourself, how can I gain a new perspective, whether that's through inspiration? Find things that broaden your creative capacity. For you, it might be walking. For you, it might be listening to music. It might be going to art galleries. It might be just sitting on a park bench and watching people. I know there's some people watchers listening this morning. See, for me, when I used to write my talks before COVID, I would sit in a Starbucks or a coffee shop and I would look around and I would kind of filter my message through how I would imagine these people would take it. So I would look at people, I'd see, like a mom with her son, or I'd see an old man sitting in the corner, or I'd see a young family, and I would just think, how can this message reach that person or reach that person? What was I doing? I was pulling myself out of where I was and putting myself in different perspectives or different vantage points. And it helped me see the message from a different perspective. For you, that's going to look differently in your life, but find that way that you broaden your creative capacity in your own life. And finally, try to come up with other solutions, multiple solutions to the problems that you're facing. Not just taking the first thing that comes to your mind, not just taking the easy option or the first solution that pops up. Think, are there different ways I could approach this? And I promise you, you will start to see this ability that you have, this capacity that you have to be creative. You'll begin to navigate situations a lot better than you would if you just take the first thing that pops up. Here are some absolutely basic things that you can put into practice right now. If we want to be a church that expresses its essential creativity, we need to be people that embody this value. We need to be people that express our essential creativity in every single day and every single element of our lives.
I think it's important for us to express creativity God has given us because art and creativity has this almost different element to it, where I think the physical and the spiritual kind of align. It's definitely like a God-given gift, you know what I mean? Like everyone has their favourite song and it does things to them that words can't. And I think that's an incredible gift from God, and we have to accept that and invite that kind of beauty into our lives. For people that don't yet have a relationship with Jesus and don't know God, it's really important that we express that thing we can't put our finger on, you know what I mean? And expose that passion.
I started off by saying I'm not very creative, but I've begun to realise that you can be creative in making friends. You can be creative in hospitality. You can be creative in whether it's your garden or whatever. The creativity is all around us. And God, I believe, has given that spark of creativity to every single one of us. And I've come to realise that. I used to think because I couldn't do any music or I couldn't draw pictures, I wasn't creative. But that creativity is there. And not only that, it's in all of us, and I believe we need to step out, find out what God's given us to do. We're on a journey, be creative, do what God's called you to do, and you can do it. And there's problems en route, it's like life, but let's get through it together with God.
I really do believe that creativity is essential to the church, not just our church, but to the church. There is always going to be a new generation that needs an understanding of who God is and a new revelation or their own revelation of who God is. And as creatives, I think that's where we come in to repackage that timeless truth. And when I think about it in that context, it makes me so excited for when we gather together again, and about that person that comes through for the door for the first time, and that person that has maybe struggled with their faith over the last year and has wrestled to get to church. I think creativity is never about vanity in that context at all. I think the moment it becomes about that, I don't want to be a part of that. It's an opportunity to take people into a process and on a journey.
Hey, it's been an amazing morning so far. We've looked at why we need to embody this as a value. We've looked at the foundations of how this is possible, and we've looked at how we can implement this in our daily lives. But now let's look at what. What would this look like for a church to embody this value of expressing its essential creativity? And then we'll look at what this looks like as individuals for us to embody this value of expressing our essential creativity. So I want to read out a statement. And this is kind of like a closing, this is like sums up everything we've looked at this morning into a statement for us to get our heads around. So this is what it would look like as a church. It would look like a church that never settles, but that dares to think differently, to create the future with boldness and imagination. A church that broadens and invests in its creative capacity through trying new things and being led by the Spirit into the unknown. It would look like a church that searches for ways to express the message of Jesus with authenticity and innovation through various forms of art, words, or whatever gifts that it may have. This church will not be ordinary, but it will champion the creativity within humanity. I don't know about you, but that is a church that I want to be part of. A church that champions this creativity that is within the heart of every single human. I love that line at the beginning. It would look like a church that never settles. Church, this is going to be something that we will have to step into. This is not something that will just come naturally to us. We have to be intentional. If we want to live in this place, we want to be the church that God is calling us to be, we need to be intentional about us as a church embodying this. That means the way that we do church, we have to filter through these values, filter through this value specifically. We will be a church that expresses its essential creativity, that dares to think differently, that dares to create the future with boldness and imagination. This excites me because this is what the world needs, a church that is on fire, that can see things beyond what is seen, that can see things differently to they are right now, that our human eyes, it doesn't just stop there, but we can see beyond what is seen. That is what the world needs right now, for a church to see it for what it could be, to see it for the way God has designed it to be. So that is what it looks like as a church. And then let's look at it as individuals. We can read this. I say this every week. This is the stuff you stick on your mirror. In the morning you say, yeah, that's the type of person I want to be. So we will be people that never settle, but that dare to think differently, to create the future with boldness and imagination. We will broaden and invest in our creative capacity through trying new things by being led by the Spirit into the unknown. We will be people that search for ways to express the message of Jesus with authenticity and innovation through various forms of art, words, or whatever gifts that we may have. We will not be ordinary, but we will champion the creativity within humanity. That is who God is calling us to be. If we want to see a renaissance of human creativity in our time, we need to be people that embody this value, that express our essential creativity in everything that we do. I hope you've been listening this morning and realize that actually creativity is not just for the artists. It is not just for the people that it looks obvious in their life. Creativity is actually a foundational element, a foundational part of humanity's design, and it was placed there by our Creator, and it was placed there for a reason. We have been made in God's image and likeness. Let us not relegate creativity to just the arts. You are creative, and the sooner you understand that, the fuller view we will have of God, the fuller view we will have of ourselves. Maybe you're listening this morning and you just feel so stuck. We've been talking about creativity and how it's seeing things differently and seeing things beyond that which is seen. Maybe right now all you can see is the mess of your own life and the brokenness of your own life and the pain of your existence right now. So many people are looking around and thinking, is this it? Is this all that my life will be? Is this the way it's always going to be? Surely there has to be something more. And maybe you just find yourself right now so broken and hurting that you just cannot see beyond where you are. let me encourage you this morning that God sees where you are at in your mess and in your brokenness. But God also sees who He has designed you to be. He sees who He has called you to be. In Romans chapter 5 verse 8 it says this, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That means whilst we were still messed up, whilst we were still broken, Jesus came and He stepped into humanity and He walked among us and He lived a human life and He died on a cross to take on your sin, to take on your brokenness, to take on your mess, so that you could be restored to God. 3 days later, He rose again out of a tomb and He trampled on sin and death and shame, and He gave you an opportunity to see things differently, to see beyond the entrapment of sin, to see beyond the brokenness of death, to see beyond the mess of this life, to actually see that there is hope beyond this life, that there is joy in this life, that there is peace to be experienced in this life. The fullness of God is available to you. All you have to do is turn from your sin and say, I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to just see the world that way anymore. God, help me see things the way you see them. Today is the day that you could step into the fullness of who God has designed you to be by turning away from your sin and following Jesus. The world is wide open for you, but the choice is yours. You have an opportunity to choose life. Can I encourage you? Choose Jesus. Don't turn and follow your sin and follow your desires and end up in a place of brokenness and pain and hurt. God is calling you into a place of life and freedom. Let me pray. I'd love to encourage you this morning. If you made that decision, I want to pray for you. But I just want to say, you just need to take your life. You just need to take it and say, God, I give you my life. Jesus, I accept what you did for me. Help me see things differently. Help me see life and not destruction. Help me see peace and not the chaos. Help me see you in the midst of everything that I face. I want to encourage you this morning, things will change from this moment on. It is the best decision you could ever make in your life. Let me pray. Father God, I want to thank you that at the heart of every human, you've created this creative capacity, that we've been designed in your image and your likeness. God, I pray right now that we would stop neglecting this part of who we are, that we would actually lean into our creativity to see things differently, to challenge what is seen before us and to dream and create the future that you have set within every single one of us. I pray for those people that just feel so stuck in their sin and stuck in their mess right now. God, I pray that you would flood their life with so much purpose and significance and just show them the way that you see them. God, I pray right now that as they turn away from their former life and they follow you, that they would just experience you in a whole new way right now. God, we thank you for all that you are doing in this church and at this time. Thank you for your presence. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, thanks for being with us this morning. It's been such a good morning. Thanks to those who have been involved in the service. You guys are amazing. We will see you real soon.
What a morning! I've literally loved it so much. It expresses essential creativity. It's so good, and a massive thank you to everyone that was involved in helping out this morning. It was so good.
Yeah, thank you to all those who helped me communicate this value. We love you. You did such a good job. It's been so good to see people's faces over the past 7 weeks. I'm excited for next week.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm so pumped for next week, and it's the last one, so I'm like excited but not all at the same time. But if you've enjoyed this morning, make sure you're connecting with us. Head to light.church/connect and fill out that form. We can get to know you and we can get you involved in Light Church, because Light Church is more than just these virtual gatherings. So yeah, we want to connect you in with that.
Yeah, definitely. And as you will know, the church is obviously coming out of lockdown. We're going to be journeying towards meeting back together again. Our first physical gathering is going to be on the 4th of July. So we'll be releasing updates over the coming months. So make sure you're on our mailing list. As Holly just said, head to light.church/connect. If you're not already part of Light Church, then you can fill all those details in there. But if you are and you don't think you're on the mailing list, shoot us an email at hello@light.church. We'd love to put you on that, keep you in the loop with all that is going on. And it's going to be a really exciting time, actually. I'm really
excited
pumped for this.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be in a room with every single one of you. It's going to be amazing. But before we get back, don't worry, we're still going to keep online. And that reminds me that you need to make sure you are connecting with all of our social media. Facebook, Instagram, this YouTube channel. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to everything that we've got going on and sharing all the content that we've got going out with your friends, with your family, with your co-workers, anyone in your world. Make sure you're sharing what we've got going on.
Yeah, and as Holly said, Light Church is far more than just a virtual gathering. We have life groups, we have midweek things going on. So make sure you do connect. We'd love to plug you into a life group. They are so important. If you're not in a life group already, get in touch. We'd love to plug you in. And if you are, really make sure you're using them. Use them for prayer, use them for your pastoral care, use them for updates, questions. Those guys are amazing. We love our life group leaders.
We do.
But that is everything from us today. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an amazing morning. We love Sundays because it is virtual gathering day. But we will see you right here next week on Sunday, 11 a.m. See ya.
See ya.